Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Hairballs and Homicide by Ruth J. Hartman, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. An unearthly shriek broke the calm of my cafe. I spun around to find the source. There, the front corner of the room. Skirting the small round tables, I rushed toward the woman. Gawking customers drew in arms and legs, parcels and bags as I flew past. A 60-something woman with pinched expression under shellacked hair, magnified by the thickest glasses I'd never seen, stood pointing at something on the floor. It had to be another huge, scary spider. Was it worth my life to approach? Why the cats didn't take on the job of getting rid of them, I'd never understand. They pounced on everything else. Bits of string, moving shadows, air. The woman backed away, her mouth hanging open. Good grief. Must be enormous to warrant her reaction. Maybe it was one of those wolf spiders? Mean enough to grab the rolled-up newspaper you used to smack it. Cautiously, not wanting to even be in the general vicinity of such a creature, I edged over. When I reached her, all I saw on the floor was one of my cats. I cleared my throat. Ma'am, I'm Ellie Warren, the owner of the Kitty Beret Cafe. Are you all right? Can I help? It's hideous. Awful! I frowned, glancing again where she'd indicated. Still, just Ferguson, now winding his furry body in and out of the screechy woman's legs. Fresh clumps of orange fur clung to her wet white pants. I'm sorry, but I don't see... Pointing straight down, she said, That thing, right there! You mean the cat? It hadn't been that long since he'd had a good brushing, and there wasn't anything gross dangling from his mouth or stuck to his tail. What was her problem? He was gorgeous. Get it away from me! She wrapped her arms around his skinny frame. Now, before it attacks me or gives me some unidentified incurable disease. She clutched a cell phone, large-screened, in the hand closest to me. Had she been calling somebody for help? Or taking pictures of the cafe? It wouldn't be the first time someone snapped photos. The place did have a rather eclectic decor, including built-in cat perches, a huge cat mural, cats dressed as historical characters on the far wall, and studio photos of each cat printed on the cafe's menus. The interesting decorations were usually good for spreading the word about the business. I bent down, scooped up Ferguson, and pressed him against my chest. The woman's insult had caused him to flatten his ears and give a loud hiss. I didn't blame him. Cats had feelings, too. Strange he hadn't run away when she screamed, yet he'd reacted to her harsh words. But felines did have selective hearing. As if I'd shaken a bag of kitty treats in the air to get their attention, several more cats raced over to investigate. Maybe they assumed Ferguson was getting something they weren't, and none of them would ever let that happen. A tussle ensued between two of the males, paws whapping while hisses sent kitty spit in every direction. But the woman, now glaring at me instead of the floor, didn't seem to notice. I ran my hand over Ferguson's front paws, hoping to keep him calm in the wake of what was happening a few feet below. Eyeing the lady, I said, I'm sorry he frightened you, ma'am. Maybe... It's disgusting! Her already wrinkled and dry face took on the appearance of a sun-dried raisin. Having a live animal in a place where people are eating, breathing the same air. Revolting! Frankly, I much preferred live animals to the awful alternative. Trying hard to maintain a professional tone, I said, maybe you didn't notice this cafe has a cat theme. After slipping her phone into her pants pocket, her bony hands landed on narrow hips. And just how would I know that? One of my regular customers, Chester Connors, a grizzled man in his 70s, tilted his head toward the front door. Clearly written in bright red letters, edged in gold, were the words, The Kitty Beret Cafe. Right there, lady, kinda hard to miss. Plus, included on a sign below was the statement, Cats reside on the premises. Her eyes, already huge from the thick lenses, grew wider. She visibly bristled, taking another step away from me. Hopefully she wouldn't notice the fluffy gift on her pant leg until after she'd left the shop. As terrible as it is for there to be actual cats in here, I find something else even more disturbing. She was determined to have her say. Might as well let her have it out. Then maybe she'd leave. Holding back a sigh, I said, "And what might that be?" "Why is it wearing that?" Her manicured fingernails circled the air in Ferguson's general direction. Grinning, I couldn't help it. I touched the handmade bumblebee costume, the cat's favorite. The fitted hat with tiny pipe cleaner antenna was pure bonus. We've found cats who wear cute outfits are even more adorable to customers. Makes it easier to find people to adopt them. Gives them a forever home. Her lip curled in a sneer. Pfft, preposterous. Cats wearing clothing like some hideous fur-covered infant. My smile fell. As snarky as the lady had been, I'd never tell her about my side business of creating cats' clothing. Hats, costumes, booties, and don't forget the tail bling. My personal favorites were the ones with jingly bells, though some of the cats found them annoying, batting at them until they ended up on the floor. Another cat or two would inevitably play soccer with the unfortunate decoration, so at least someone enjoyed it. Win-win. Shifting Ferguson to a more comfortable position in my arms, I said, "Perhaps I could interest you in a free cup of coffee and a homemade Danish." To go, I really wanted to add, but I didn't dare. She looked mad enough to bite me. Blinking, she let her gaze trail up to the chalkboard above the main service counter where we listed all the different drink and food items for sale. Several long seconds passed before she spoke. Must be very nearsighted, which would explain the glasses. "But the names," I nodded, ready to recommend our house favorite, the saucer of milk latte. "They all have to do with cats." What was with her? Aside from the name of the cafe being prominently displayed on the outside of the door, on the top of the welcome sign above the counter, and stamped on every item the cafe sold, I think the nosy group of felines congregated at her feet might just give her a hint that, yes, we did happen to like them. A growl and a hiss came from below as Monty, a black and white tuxedo cat, swatted his paw at Celeste, a long-haired calico. The calico in turn puffed out her fur, expanding her body to twice its normal size. The female gave a shriek, sending a shiver up my back. "Oh!" The woman leapt straight up and landed with her foot on someone's tail, causing a howl. The cat, not the woman, though her yell was nearly as loud. "I'm leaving." "Hooray!" "Oh, if you must." "You haven't heard the last from me." Her finger waved a mere 3 inches from my nose. My impulse to swat it like a jingly bell was strong, but I refrained. I did have a business reputation to protect. She pulled back her hand. "I'll write something about this place that will get your attention, and everyone else's." She was a writer. Maybe she had been taking pictures earlier to accompany a story? I couldn't do anything to stop her from writing whatever she wanted, but I wished she'd never walked through my door. Our shop needed all the good mojo it could get, especially for the cat's sake. The witch lifted her feet exaggeratedly high, stepping over the feline audience as if the room were filled with medical waste that might soil her high heels. As soon as she'd gotten clear of tails and paws, she fled toward the door. Turning toward me, her words came out as a hiss rivaling any I'd heard in the cafe. "You'll be sorry you ever met me." Already was, lady. I plastered a fake smile on my face as I watched her go. What more could she really do than insult the cats, my cafe, and me in some paper or magazine? I'd had worse things said to me by other cat haters. Couldn't imagine how she could top it. The moment the door slammed behind her, the room erupted in applause. My irregulars, who all adored everything cat-related, wouldn't stand for someone who didn't. Though they each had at least one cat at home to care for, they were so good about bringing the cafe cats gifts of catnip, mice, and treats whenever they came for coffee. Wanting to get on with my day, I laughed and waved at the small crowd, then returned to my perch behind the counter. My latest creation, a half-completed unicorn, waited for me on the workbench. I desperately hoped the outfit would catch someone's eye enough to pick up whichever cat wore it. Maybe someone would adopt one of our babies soon. It had been too long. My sewing needle weaved in and out of the fabric, barely needing my hands for assistance. I was working on the animal's horn, a glittery gold protrusion on the accompanying hat. I'd made clothing my whole life. In the past, I'd sewn things for myself, but creating something for the cats to wear was way more fun. With Halloween a few weeks away, orders were coming in for cat costumes. I was geared up to tackle them all. Except maybe the tarantula one. Blah. Several hours passed in blissful sewing, taking breaks to serve customers who wanted to order a drink or ask about the cat items for sale. It was my favorite kind of day. Things running smoothly, the cats getting along, people laughing. The only dark spot had been that awful woman. I was so glad she was gone. Hopefully for good. My assistant came in for her shift. I gave her a nod. "Hey, Ellie. Heard some lady was screaming in here this morning. What happened?" I frowned at Shirley. And yes, when you said it fast, it sounded like Shirley. And yes, her mother had a strange sense of humor. Just ask Cheryl's brother, Wall. Some dissatisfied customer mouthing off. Stepping closer, she said, "Uh-oh. Was it our new Kahlua kitty cup? I may have put too much cinnamon in the recipe." "Nope, just didn't like cats." "Then why did she even—" I shrugged. "You got me." Her costume for the day was a furry white catsuit, complete with matching eye mask and black whiskers drawn on with eyeliner. Quirky obliviously ran in her family. I sat down my sewing to take an order from two women who'd recently started coming in. Doris Anderson and Julia Markley. They'd been next-door neighbors for years. Apparently they'd formed a fast friendship and had been joined at the hip ever since. As they reached the counter, I said, "Hello, ladies, what can I get you?" Heads close together, they conversed back and forth for a few seconds, whispering and pointing. After some shrugging and shoulder poking, finally Doris said, "I'll have a cat's out of the bag, and she'll have a mocha meow." Every single time they came in, their routine was the same. Though I knew Julia's name, I'd never heard her speak. Was never sure if she couldn't or just wouldn't. "Great, coming right up." Cheryl scurried to the closed-off food prep area to prepare their orders. A sign on the gate read, "No cats allowed beyond this point." We figured the cats could read since they usually didn't even try to sneak in. Doris pointed toward the gate Cheryl had disappeared behind. "Excuse me, but does she always wear a white cat costume to work in?" "No," I said, "only on Thursdays." The woman blinked. "Oh, but—" The bell on the door, yes, a cattail jingled. In walked two very large men. The older one, quite stern-looking, stood with his arms crossed, while the younger glanced around the decor, and did the older guy just roll his eyes? So rude! The latte machine whirred from the food prep area as Cheryl finished the orders from the women. I stood and waited for the men to approach. "Hi, what can I get for you today?" The older man said, "Are you Ollie Warren?" Startled by his gruff voice and the fact he'd said my name as if it was contagious, I answered, "Yes." "We have a few questions." "About what?" Why was he being so surly? My eyes dropped to the badge attached to his belt. Detective. The second man, maybe my age, leaned forward. He also wore a detective's badge. What was going on? Had one of the cats scratched a customer, thus prompting an unnecessary call to the police? How would something so small warrant a police visit? "Listen," I said, "if one of the cats has done something to—" The older man held up his hand to pull him out. "Nothing to do with her cats." The last word came out sounding deeply offensive. "Then what?" The younger man said, "I'm Detective Dare. The questions we have are about a woman." "Okay. Lots of women come into the shop daily. Who are you asking about?" Why questions from a detective? Detective Dare said, "We've had a call from a Mr. Harrington." He waited, watching me closely. Was I supposed to answer? "I'm not familiar with that name." "He called about his wife who'd gone missing." "I'm sorry, but—" The grumpy detective, who'd never bothered to introduce himself, said, "Do you or do you not know a Mr. or Mrs. Harrington?" No. Try not sounding imbecilic in front of the law. After rifling through his pocket, Detective Dare held out a business card. "Recognize this?" Of course, it's my card for this shop. This was found in Mrs. Margaret Harrington's pocket. Seems this cafe was the last place her husband knew of his wife was going to visit." "Look, I don't know anything about them. People are in and out of here all day long. Why don't you tell me what this is about so I can get back to my customers?" It was then I remembered the two ladies who stood a few feet down from the counter, wide eyes focused squarely on our conversation. Hard telling what they or any of my regulars who were all staring in our direction might tell others. Small town. Wouldn't take long. Mr. Grumpy held something else out, a driver's license. Here's who we've come about. Recognize the picture? I leaned closer and squinted. It took me only a few seconds to identify the nasty woman from earlier. The one who'd screamed in my shop and hated cats, and had said I'd be sorry I'd ever met her. Yeah, okay, I did see her earlier, though I hadn't known her name. Look, if she complained about being in the shop with cats, which, by the way, I explained to her was a coffee shop with cats, maybe we could clear this all up right now? I'm afraid it's not so simple, said Detective Dare. Margaret Harrington is dead.